County is preparing for the potential for even more rain.
Yeah, rain, definitely not something we need, and we're preparing for the possibility of a hurricane for South Florida as we head into next week. We've been telling you about this over the last several days, and this is brand new this morning. Tropical Depression 9 expected to become Hermine. I'll show you what's new this morning in your first alert forecast.
Traffic on NBC2 is brought to you by Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm. If you've been injured, call Morgan & Morgan today or visit forthepeople.com.
And for my commuters in Cape Coral, if you're heading out the door this morning, no crashes to report, and those speed times are looking pretty nice. It's going to be an easy 4-minute drive if you're taking any of our Cape Coral bridges this morning. That's your NBC2 traffic alert.
Now is the perfect time to shop City Mattress during the fall clearance event with savings up to 40% on mattresses, adjustable beds, and bedroom furniture. Choose from the best brand names at the best prices and get free delivery, free setup, and a sleep guarantee that assures you have the right mattress at the guaranteed lowest price. The fall clearance event on now, only at City Mattress.
I'm Marco Rubio, and I approved this message.
Val Demings. She'd be Florida's most liberal senator ever. Demings votes with Pelosi 100%. She supports amnesty and gave stimulus checks to illegal immigrants. Supports taxpayer-funded abortion until the moment of birth. Demings even voted to allow transgender youth sports and teach children radical gender identity without parental consent. Val Demings. She's not just liberal. She's dangerously radical.
When you need to find a new roommate, there's a RAV for that. Lease a new 2022 Toyota RAV4 LE for just $299 a month for 36 months. Toyota, let's go places.
If you're looking to do your kitchen or bath and you're interviewing contractors, what should you ask? What should you know about materials and craftsmanship? Do they do the work themselves or do they hire others? And what about a warranty? Bottom line, who you choose makes all the difference. So go to our website for a copy of 10 things you better ask before you choose a contractor. Our name, by the way, is Cornerstone, and we love tough questions.
6:29. Thanks for counting on NBC2 News today on this Friday. I'm Alan Campbell.
And I'm Lisa Spinner. We have team coverage this morning here on NBC2. NBC2's first alert meteorologist Jason Dunning is tracking the tropics, while Jennifer Vaglis is telling us how local communities are preparing for a storm.
But first, let's send things over to Jason Dunning. Jason, we just got new spaghetti plots. What are you seeing out there this morning?
Yeah, the threat to Florida definitely looking more likely based on what we're seeing this morning, and particularly southwest Florida. You know, things can still change over the next few days, and we'll be monitoring all those potential changes. But right now, we need to plan on the possibility of a hurricane impacting South Florida by next week. And we're going to go through that latest forecast cone, and we'll look at the spaghetti plots here to show you what Alan was referring to in just a moment. But first, I want to show you the latest on the location and the stats on Tropical Depression number 9. It's likely not going to be a depression for very long. The forecast is for this to become Tropical Storm Hermine as early as today. It's still dealing with some wind shear, so the conditions are not quite ideal for intensification. You can see where the low is. That's the center of circulation, where the thunderstorms are displaced to the western side, but it's going to move into a much more favorable environment in the northwestern Caribbean as we get into the weekend on Saturday and Sunday, and that's when it could actually become a hurricane. You can see here we are, still about 1,300 miles away from us, so we're still about 5 days out from potential impacts from a tropical system. So here are the spaghetti plots, and over the last few days, we've seen a lot more spread, but as expected, these forecast models coming into better agreement, and the trend has not really been our friend over the course of the last 12 hours. You can see the plots. Now, this just shows the track, not the strength, taking it through the central Caribbean south of Jamaica, and then taking that turn to the north, closer to Cuba, and then back up towards South Florida as we get into late Tuesday and into Wednesday of next week. Could we see more changes with the forecast models? Yes, that is absolutely a possibility. The system is still trying to organize, so we're probably going to see some more adjustments, more fine-tuning. And as we get into the weekend, we'll be able to offer a lot more specifics on exactly what to expect locally across Southwest Florida as we lock in that track. But here's the latest cone of concern. The 5 o'clock advisory winds at 35 miles per hour, expected to become tropical storm Fiona as early as 2 o'clock this afternoon, and then it moves into a much more favorable environment. The forecast is for this to become a Category 1 hurricane and potentially even stronger than that by early Tuesday and into Wednesday of next week as it threatens Florida. That at least is looking more likely right now. And we'll talk more about, is there anything that can actually weaken this system as it moves through the Caribbean? Anything that we have on our side? We'll talk about that in your first alert forecast coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, Jason, thank you. 6:32 and portions of Southwest Florida are already struggling with flooding. Right now, parts of the Gateway community are seeing more water than usual. The rain is quickly filling up the ponds and leaving the ground soaking wet. Now the concern is a possible storm heading our way and how to handle the mess. NBC2's Jennifer Vegas joins us live from Gateway this morning. Jennifer, how are things looking out there right now?
Well, I'm standing outside the Timberwood Preserve community here off Griffin Drive. Neighbors here tell me all it takes is one big storm to flood the entire street, comparing things to a wet rag that just can't seem to take on any more water. Now let's cut to some video that we took last night of some standing water on Timbermarsh Court. Neighbors tell us their streets were flooded for a week and a half. The Gateway Services Community Development District is aware of some slow drainage issues. Crews are preparing, monitoring storm drains and catch basins, especially for pesky debris that may clog up the system and make for some flooding for these residents. Now, as a potential tropical storm system forms in the Gulf of Mexico, neighbors just hope it doesn't impact Southwest Florida.
Hurricane comes, it's just going to keep coming right on up to my bench. Really, really heavy rains we had, they were devastating.
Now, the Gateway Services CDD, local and state leaders are monitoring the nearby awares around this community because they are higher than normal and they could make for a bad situation if Southwest Florida is impacted by this system that's right now forming. But of course, stick with NBC2 as we monitor the system and bring you the latest updates. Live in Fort Myers, Jennifer Vegas, NBC2.
I mean, right now it's a wait and watch situation.
Yeah, it's not just happening in Lee County either. We are seeing flooding concerns across Southwest Florida. Constant rainfall in Arcadia forced the Peace River campground to close for now. Take a look at this. I mean, they haven't seen this kind of flooding since Hurricane Irma in 2017. All the RVs have now been moved to higher ground. This is the first time in years the park has been closed.
Definitely a lot higher than we anticipated or than we wanted. The water is around 1 to 2 feet, maybe 3 feet, and then when it'll get a little bit higher and it'll go around 5 or 6 feet, and that's typically, it'll stay there.
Now those water levels did start to slowly drop yesterday, but for now it's mainly a waiting game. The hope is to reopen in phases in October, as long as that water does continue to recede.
And Lisa, similar issues are happening in Collier County. Homes along 48th Avenue Northeast and Golden Gate Estates, take a look at this, are basically surrounded by moats. Some have up to 12 inches of water in their front yards right now. Many families are resorting to things like using wakeboards just to get to and from their houses. Also, the Kauai Animal Preserve recently shut down as many of their big cat cages, look at this, they're underwater. Workers are trying to keep those animals safe. If the water gets 4 inches deeper, they'll have to move the animals to smaller spaces. Plus, in Cape Coral, the city is working to tackle flooding along Hancock Bridge Parkway. Remember these pictures? Neighbors say it's gotten so bad they've had to put sandbags up against their garages just to keep that water out. The Public Works Department is working with an engineering firm right now to come up with 3 design plans to alleviate the flooding issues. Then they'll decide on cost and figure out what permits are needed. And remember, folks, the best way for you to keep yourself informed during any weather event is to download our NBC2 weather app. Remember, it's free to download on the Apple Store and Google Play. Once you get it downloaded, make sure you turn on those push notifications so when we know, you know.
Traffic on NBC2 is brought to you by Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm. If you've been injured, call Morgan & Morgan today or visit forthepeople.com.
6:36 is your time, and if you're just tuning in, I-75 right now, it is very messy, and that's because of a crash that we've been tracking for about an hour and a half now. Only one right lane is blocked off for this morning, but you can see people are just trying to see exactly what is going on. So these are onlooker delays. Once you pass this crash, you should be good to go. You can see cars are just driving on by. But again, this is right near the Daniels Parkway exit on mile marker 131. You are going to see troopers on scene just investigating this crash. Stick to that center lane, that left lane, or you can always hop onto US 41. Let's switch things over to our main maps because we're also tracking a crash right along Palm Beach Boulevard and Hickey Creek Road. There's a 7-mile delay. Westbound lanes along Palm Beach Boulevard are blocked off, and those speed times are coming in at 20 miles per hour. So again, you are going to see troopers and deputies on scene investigating this crash as well. Stacy?
All right, Brianna, thank you. Some breaking news over here in the NBC2 Alert Center. Massive search right now for a suspect who killed a Pinellas County deputy. I've been tracking this breaking story for the last hour. I want to, John, pull up Twitter here. A new picture posted 12 minutes ago. We just watched and listened in live, an update from the Pinellas County Sheriff. This new picture of him, again, posted here in the last few minutes. The deputy who was killed, only 51 years old, a 19-year veteran, dedicated his life to protecting the people of Pinellas County. The suspect hit him on I-275 around midnight and then took off. The sheriff announcing there will be a procession at 7 a.m. when the deputy's body is taken to the medical examiner. He is asking people in that area to pay their respects and line the streets to honor this fallen deputy. Alan?
Yeah, just so heartbreaking. Hopefully they can find the person responsible. Stacey, thank you. A deadly crash shuts down a busy Fort Myers intersection for hours. We'll tell you what investigators say caused the crash just ahead.
And while you were sleeping, Tropical Depression 9 formed in the Caribbean. A brand new advisory was just issued, and First Alert meteorologist Jason Denning is telling you everything you need to know this morning. That's straight ahead.
Tonight at 6, they protect against storms, prevent erosion, and preserve our water quality.
Mangroves are very important to the ecosystem.
But their numbers are dwindling. See how these young students are bringing mangroves back. Tonight at 6 on NBC2.
We were witness to history, and I know we felt so privileged and so touched to be there.
Josh had a pretty good season last year. Is there a part of you that takes a little bit of credit for it?
Yeah, of course.
Here's the game plan. No razzle, no dazzle. Just rush to Tamiami Ford for huge savings.
Like new F-150s with 2.9% financing for 72 months.
Tamiami Ford. Our name is a great deal.
If you have cataracts, choose your doctor wisely. Get Dr. Brad Sneed to fix them. Why? Because his results are better. If you have cataracts, Brad Sneed is the man to see.
We're here, Fort Myers. Introducing the all-new Fort Myers Genesis. Visit us just south of the Bell Tower Shops on Tamiami Trail.
When you fall at a place of business, we stand up to the challenge. Farron Farah, here for you, here for good.
Crowther has over 2 decades of experience servicing the air conditioning needs of Southwest Florida. We have dedicated an entire division to service our residential clients with well-trained technicians and state-of-the-art technology and equipment. Whether you need to repair, replace, or maintain your existing air conditioning system, Crowther will keep your indoor climate cool and comfortable. To learn about Crowther's air conditioning division, go to crowther.net. There is only one, Crowther.
If you're fed up every time you fill up, or ticked off whenever you pick up groceries, well, maybe it's time you had a governor focused on you. But Ron DeSantis is dividing Florida, bullying school children, passing an abortion ban with no exception for rape or incest, and doing nothing to lower costs for you. Here's my plan. Veto any bill that threatens a woman's right to choose. Force property insurance companies to lower rates, and cut the gas tax. DeSantis won't do it, but I will.
It's the Game Plan for Savings event going on now.
Save big on new Escapes and Explorers with 2.9% financing, plus $500 in bonus cash.
Our name is a great deal.
NBC2's First Alert Live Doppler Radar is sponsored by Royal Shell Real Estate. We make it easy. You make it home.
6:41 in this morning, Colonial Boulevard is back open after it was shut down for hours yesterday due to a fatal crash. Well, we now know one person was killed in that crash near I-75. Investigators say an elderly driver suffered a medical episode causing a chain reaction. The driver hit the gas, hitting the cars in front of him. One car, look at this here, was pinned underneath a tanker, killing that driver. This morning, we are still working to learn more about the person who died.
6:41 this weekend, Canada could see the strongest storm to ever hit its coast. This is a live satellite image of Hurricane Fiona. It's going to slam into Canada tomorrow morning. Nova Scotia is now bracing for impact. Officials are warning of damaging winds, life-threatening storm surges, heavy rainfall, and prolonged power outages. People more than 400 miles from the center could experience tropical storm conditions. And again, right now this is swirling over Bermuda, but it's going to be heading up to Canada and Nova Scotia this weekend.
6:42, and our eyes, of course, focus on the tropics. If you're just waking up this morning, I want you to come look at this because this is brand new. We have Tropical Depression 9 that developed as of 5 o'clock this morning from that tropical wave we've been telling you about for the last several days. And this is likely going to become Tropical Storm Hermine as we go through the afternoon today. And then once it moves through the Caribbean, especially the northwestern Caribbean, we're getting strong indications this is going to organize pretty quickly into a Category 1 hurricane. At least that's the latest forecast. It could potentially be stronger. It could also be weaker. So these are some of the details that we have to work out. And then as it continues north over western Cuba, you can see it arcs back to the north and northeast, pointed in the general direction of southwest Florida by late Tuesday and into Wednesday of next week, possibly as a Category 2 hurricane with winds at 110 miles per hour. That part is subject to change. Just want to remind you that with the hurricane forecast in general, once you get to about 4 to 5 days out, the margin for error increases. So hopefully we will see some changes away from us with this, and we're going to take just a closer look to show you where we are in that forecast cone, and we're kind of right in the middle of it. It's very possible the storm could track a little bit farther to the west, even possible that it could go farther to the east, and if it does go far enough east, that would be the best case scenario for us here in southwest Florida, because if it stays to the west of us, we would still get some impacts from a lot of those rain bands and some of that tropical moisture. Here's a closer look at Tropical Depression number 9, soon to be Hermine, and it's not looking incredibly healthy. And you can just kind of see that here from the satellite presentation. Here's that core of the storm where that center of low pressure is. And you can see all the thunderstorms here displaced on the western side. And that's because it's still dealing with some of that wind shear that we've been talking about. And you can see those upper level winds. I have them on the map here for you. So there's the center, the core of the system. And there's some really fast winds aloft coming in. And that's helping to push those thunderstorms on the western side of the system. But I want you to see this as we look at the wind shear here. Look at the wind shear or lack of wind shear once it moves into the central Caribbean. So there's Jamaica, and that's why we fully expect this to organize once it moves into a more favorable environment, potentially into a hurricane. So we're looking at anything that could help to keep this a little bit weaker. Dry air, that's one thing the hurricanes don't like, and there's not a whole lot of dry air across the central and northwestern Caribbean. There is some over towards South Florida, but that will be moving out by the time the system will be pulling northward as we get into next week. And there's plenty of heat energy, plenty of very warm water temperatures for soon-to-be Hermine to tap into. And we haven't seen a storm yet this season in this part of the Atlantic Basin, and those water temperatures coming in around 85 to 86 degrees. I want to show you the American forecast model because this is where we've seen the biggest change since yesterday. If you were with us yesterday, we saw quite a split with the forecast models between the European and the American. Now they are fairly much aligned, and we expected to see a lot more consensus as we got some better information and the hurricane hunters were investigating the storm. The American forecast model Sunday night at 8 o'clock shows a well-organized hurricane in the northwestern Caribbean and then has it taking that gap in the ridge northward across western Cuba and up in the general direction of South Florida or Southwest Florida. We could see some changes here in the track. That's why you want to watch it very closely. If it moves farther east and interacts with Cuba, that can also help to weaken the storm. So there is that potential land interaction. But as we look at the intensity forecast, and these are the spaghetti plots, but for the strength, not for the track. And this is the starting point where we are right here. And I want to show you about 120 hours out. This is when it would be near South Florida.